Good morning, everybody. I wanted to point this out. I've been having a conversation with a couple of different people about the same topic, and I've done videos about this in the past about StatsCan's projections for our population in 45 years. They model out to 2063. That's 45 years from now, or 45 years from 2018, I guess. And so it's interesting to look at those models because they have three: the high population, the medium population, and the low population. And I'm not going to get into that right now because that'll take me on a whole other rabbit hole. But here's the headline from the CIC Canadian Immigration Newsletter news report, and it's published on March 26, 2019. And two things I wanted you to notice about this report. It says, quote, new immigrants make up 61% of Canada's population growth in 2018. And I want to ask you, is that a sustainable way to maintain Canada? I don't know if just bringing in people at this rate, at this number, 61% of our growth, that's very high. Is that what we want to do with our immigration? Or do we want to match immigration to necessary jobs and have a hard cap of 250,000 people in per year? And that's a number that needs to be negotiated. There's been a lot of talk, and man, there was a big, long Twitter conversation yesterday that this was a sticking point, the 250,000 number. Mr. Bernier's proposition is to go back to 250,000 immigrants, and then I believe to have a conversation. And he's talked about or less, fewer than 250,000 immigrants per year. And so that's an interesting aspect to this. Yes, people are allowed to have disagreements, and yes, people are allowed to have conversations, but people aren't allowed to spew hate. I hope people don't misunderstand that talking about bringing 61% of your growth to be made up of immigration or immigrants fundamentally changes your country. So we should be allowed, and it should be required, to have a conversation about this. And the other point I wanted to show you here is that the actual number of immigrants coming in 2018, and this is according to this newsletter. I haven't double verified this number, but it's interesting to see. These people would know, and something to note. So back to the newsletter, quote, over the course of 2018, Canada's population grew by over 500,000 or 528,421 people. The international migration accounted for 80.5% of the growth, representing a combined total of 425,245 new immigrants and temporary residents to the country. So 425,000 people were the international migration. And that's a lot. That's even above the 310,000 we're told. Why is that? From what I can tell, it's student visas and like temporary people. It doesn't count in the 310 number. And I'm not exactly sure how all that works. I'm going to have to find out because I'm interested in why this many and not the lower number that we're told often in the press. And that's 310 right now, I believe. And so that's interesting to me. So something to note, something to converse about, because I think we need to converse about it. And Mr. Bernier is the only one who's willing to talk about it. And he's being labeled alt-right. Are these alt-right statements? I think these are very rational statements talking about the future of our country. And not just the future tomorrow future or next week future, but the future 5 years and 10 years and 15 years and 20 years, right? Because we have to talk about that because those matter. They're going to happen, whether we are engaged in them or not. Right? And we need to talk about them and how we're going to manage the coming years, because we're going to need to, right? We can't just ignore it. It doesn't run itself, despite what Justin Trudeau thinks. Okay, and on to Justin Trudeau. The Globe and Mail is reporting SNC revives court bid for settlement. I tried to do this video last night. It didn't work because this is kind of a complicated thing, and this article tries to make it complicated. I think I had to reread this article a bunch. Maybe I'm slow. I don't know. Who knows? But I reread this article a bunch and went through it, and I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible. But the short version of this is SNC Lavalin is reviving their legal options to access a DPA. As soon as that happens, the Attorney General has an obligation to look at it with fresh eyes. Fresh eyes means throwing out everything that happened and looking at all of just the evidence, not anything that's politicized around this. So this is the excuse. This is the excuse to get Lametti to be in charge. And if somebody says gazette it, that means in order to gazette something, in order for SNC to get a DPA, a deferred prosecution agreement, Mr. Lametti would have to write a report in the Gazette letting the public know. The Montreal Gazette is the paper of note, I believe, in that area. So he would have to put it in the paper, let the public know, and then they would have access to a DPA. And can we stop any of this? No, absolutely. Not unless the government falls. We can't stop this. Unless Jody Wilson-Raybould has more papers or more information. And yeah, that's our last story today. There's the other shoe is starting to be teetered on the shelf. It's going to drop today, maybe. I think Scheer's got some stuff to release, and he's releasing it at 2:00. But let's stay on the SNC Lavalin stuff first. So they're reviving their legal challenge to get a DPA. Okay, SNC Lavalin is making a fresh legal bid to avoid criminal prosecution for bribery and fraud charges, saying new and troubling facts have emerged from recent parliamentary hearings that bolster its request to enter negotiations on a settlement. SNC says it was given a quote, very cursory explanation for the position taken by Kathleen Roussel, the federal director of public prosecutions, including, quote, 3 factors that informed her decision not to shelve the prosecution. These include, quote, the nature and gravity of the alleged acts, the, quote, degree of involvement of senior officials of the organization, and the fact that, quote, the company did not self-report, the conduct that led to the charges. So those are 3 reasons why the DPA was off the table. Those are the 3 things that they said no for the first time, right? She said no. That was September 5th. Then after that, they submitted some more documents, and back here, this is back to the article. SNC Lavalin's argument in this appeal is that Ms. Wilson-Raybould, who supported Ms. Roussel's decision on September 5th not to enter the negotiation for a DPA in the company, did not have all the facts at hand when she made up her mind. SNC contends that she was apparently unaware that the company had submitted additional information to bolster its case before and after September 16 last year, the date by which the former Attorney General had testified, she had said, formed the view that it was inappropriate for her to overrule Ms. Roussel. SNC Lavalin says that on September 4th last year, the company was given a preliminary indication that it would not be invited to negotiate a DPA. It was that same day, according to the testimony of the Justice Committee, that Ms. Rousseau sent Ms. Wilson-Raybould a special memo called a Section 13 memorandum outlining why she had decided not to invite SNC Lavalin to enter in negotiations. So on the 4th, the same day she sent the communication to SNC, she sent a communication to Ms. Wilson-Raybould saying these are the reasons no DPA is given. It was the next day, September 5th, when it was provided with 3 factors that had influenced Ms. Rousseau's decision. Quote, upon being so informed, SNC Lavalin appealed, said it's asked to submit additional information to the Director of Public Prosecutions. Judicial review permits individuals or corporations to challenge the fairness of government conduct, but the courts have long declined to review the decisions of prosecutors except in cases involving an abuse of power, and SNC Lavalin did not allege such an abuse when it was before Justice Kane. So, okay, here's the part where it kind of gets hinky, right? In the dismissing of the company's request on March 8th, Justice Kane stressed that neither the courts nor the politicians should interfere with the exercise of prosecutorial discretion. Okay, so on the 8th, on the September 5th, Ms. Rousseau said no. SNC said, and that's the decision, right? No, the answer is no, you're going to trial. SNC said, can we submit further documents? Ms. Rousseau said, sure, but she had already submitted the documents to Ms. Wilson-Raybould saying these are the reasons why they don't qualify. She received the documents and, according to SNC, never passed that information on to Ms. Wilson-Raybould, and that constitutes the next part of this, right? So they said no. They did an appeal, which was declined on March 8th, and the reason it was declined, and I'm going to read this here because this explains the reason why it was declined. Hold on, let me make sure. It didn't. It actually says it up here. So, okay, here it says, but courts have long declined to review decisions of prosecutors, except in cases involving abuses of power. Okay? So, during the March 8th, this is what they were told. These three things, and then you guys didn't allege an abuse of power, so no. Fast forward down here. Okay. But in its appeal filing this week, the company explains why it is now alleging an abusive process. Sorry, did I say power? I meant process. SNC says Ms. Rousseau accepted its request on September 5th that it be permitted to submit additional information to support its bid for a deferred prosecution agreement. It provided Ms. Rousseau's office with new information over the days that followed. However, it says Ms. Wilson-Raybould seemed to be unaware of the new information because Ms. Rousseau apparently failed to tell her about it. SNC cites Ms. Wilson-Raybould's testimony at the Justice Committee as its source for these assertions. This failure to consult Ms. Wilson-Raybould had improper consequences, the company argues, in that Ms. Rousseau, as Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, is in law accountable to the Attorney General. This resulted in the checks and balances regarding the accountability of the DPP being critically circumvented. There's a ... in there as well, so anything can be put in there. This failure lies at the heart of the DPP's decision-making process in this matter and constitutes a clear abuse of process. Oh, look at that. So, and I'm just trying to really drive this home. And September 5th, they were told no. After September 5th, or September 4th, they were told no. After September 4th, they gave more documentation, still told no at the appeal in March because they didn't allege an abusive process. All of a sudden, they allege abusive process and say, this is the clear abusive process. Here it is. This is exactly what you want. This is how they weaponize our legal system. Could you do this? If you were accused of a crime, say you were accused of a crime in 2015. Could you have the law changed in 2018 and then use that changed law to access, to get out of whatever crime or criminal prosecution was awaiting you 3 years later, and then appeal multiple times and get the attorney general changed just so you could get out of it? I don't think so. I don't like this two-tiered legal system. It is a clear two-tiered legal system, and I don't like it. If you have enough money and power and I guess 9,000 jobs, but not oil jobs, definitely not oil jobs, you can access this kind of stuff. But, oh, right, and you also might have to have a direct line to the Prime Minister's office. Yeah. So I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I think it's absolute bunk. Here's a criminal defense lawyer saying it's probably not going to work, but yeah, right. I think it's going to definitely work, and I don't think Trudeau cares about it. I don't think he cares about the optics. I think he knows he's out of power in October, and I think he's going to ram through whatever he can ram through. So back to the article now. Criminal defense lawyer Solomon Friedman characterized the new SNC Lavalin legal bid as a Hail Mary pass. He said what this appeal fundamentally misunderstands is that the prosecution decision was not the Attorney General's to make. Quote, the decision was the Director of the Public Prosecutors to make. Mr. Friedman said while the Attorney General can take charge of prosecutions or issue direction, the Attorney General is not the Director of Public Prosecution's supervisor. So that's interesting to note. And I think if they try and push this, there's going to be two levels of pushback. The public prosecutor, Ms. Rousseau, and number two will be Ms. Wilson-Raybould, who I think still has further stuff that she can lay out if Justin Trudeau crosses a line. But here is Justin Trudeau.
We have
answering a question about SNC Lavalin, and this is after they've relaunched their bid and all this other stuff. This is 12:45 on April 5th. The other day. So
we have an independent judiciary with strong institutions, and we're a country that follows the rule of law. The courts will follow their appropriate process. The Attorney General, as we've heard many times over the past weeks, has the responsibility to make a determination on whether and how to intervene in matters before the courts, and will exercise that in a way that is rigorous and in keeping with the rule of law.
Right, and if you believe that, I've got some property to sell you in Florida or something. That was a trope when I was a kid. I remember watching Married with Children, and they were going to buy the property in Florida. And it was a scam. Anyway, CTV News is reporting. So I don't believe Trudeau. I think that Lametti is going to absolutely gazette this, and he is going to take control of this whole thing. And SNC is going to try and get a legal way out of this. And I'm sure they hate being caught in this crossfire. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. They did it to themselves. They're the ones who lobbied the government 50 times or whatever, and directly the Prime Minister's office and the Privy Council office and the Privy Council clerk. So they deserved to be in the middle of this. I'm just saying they don't like to be in the middle of this. But we're going to have Ms. Rousseau come out, I'm sure, publicly and say, not a chance. We're going to have Ms. Wilson-Raybould speak when this happens, because it looks like this is happening, right? I said Easter, but it looks like they don't care. Poll numbers be damned. We're going down with the ship. Look at those poll numbers. He's going to Kathleen win this. And I hope so. I hope so. I really do. So here's CTV News reporting that Scheer's got Jody Wilson-Raybould's other shoe, and he's going to drop it at 2:00. And like I said, there's more. There's definitely more to this. There's another 2 weeks, because this is going to take time to play out, right? Because you got to watch what happens. It's when you play chess, you expect to do one thing, but sometimes your opponent doesn't do what you expect, and so you have to do something else. This is more complicated than chess. Okay, back to the article. CTV News. Scheer says he'll release new document related to SNC Lavalin affair. Conservative leader Andrew Scheer says he'll release new information related to the SNC Lavalin affair on Sunday. In a Saturday afternoon press release, Scheer said he will present new documents related to the scandal that has plagued Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government. Scheer's team did not specify what type of information is in the documents or how many pages will be released. The announcement is scheduled for 2 p.m. in Ottawa. The news comes on the heels of developments at the affair earlier this week. On Tuesday, Trudeau removed Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott from the federal Liberal caucus, citing the will of caucus. The two once prominent cabinet ministers now sit in the House of Commons as independents. Whether it's taping conversations without consent or repeatedly expressing lack of confidence in our government and in me personally as leader, it's become clear that Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Dr. Philpott can no longer be part of our Liberal team, Trudeau said Tuesday. I'm surprised he didn't say Jody and Jane, because that's how much respect he usually gives these ladies, that feminist him. So it's interesting to watch. This whole affair has been out of control the whole time. The crisis team sent into management has been hapless and doing a terrible job. It seems like if somebody had told them, hey, put that fire out, they heard, hey, can you get some wood and put the fire and make it into a really big bonfire? They messed it up, and they continue to mess up, and they're continuing to be tone deaf on the response on this. Everything they do is wrong. Every step they make is wrong. And Trudeau looks like a liar, is a liar, and people don't trust him. People can't stand him. I don't know what to say. I can't imagine the poll numbers are an accurate reflection. I couldn't imagine anybody being excited about him, except that it's very hard to get accurate information from CTV News because they take a Liberal tweet and take it as gospel. They take that as news, and people think, oh, everything's fine. I'm sick and tired of this SNC thing. Yeah, I'm tired of a two-tiered legal system. I'm sick and tired of no transparency in government. I'm sick and tired of a liar who's lying to the Canadian public and doing it with impunity, not being called out on it effectively, and being able to pay off the press with our taxpayer dollars. It's incredible. It's incredible. And happening seemingly right in front of everybody while they continue with their day-to-day lives and ignore it, pretending like it doesn't exist. Because if you engage with it, somehow you'll be called names. Yeah, that's where we're at. It's incredible. So check out the People's Party of Canada.ca and, keep watching, everyone. There's more to come on this story, 2 o'clock today. And I've got something to do at 2 o'clock today. I'm going to an open mic. Should be fun. And so my video will be a little later this afternoon or this evening. So I'm interested to see what's happening, though. Very exciting. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca and CanadaPoly.com. We'd love to have you join the conversation. Okay, now I'm really done.